we are part of a nation, which is India, right? Extremely diverse. If I was to ask you a few questions of just how diverse India is, what are the thoughts that come in your mind? How diverse are we? Anything that overwhelms you, that, hey, this is interesting. So for example, I'm a foodie. So I look at the chutneys, wet chutney, dry chutney, red, green, orange, all colors of chutney, right? And if it's an Independence Day, I even see forwards where there are 3 chutneys and Happy Independence Day, 1 orange, 1 white, and 1 green, right? What are the thoughts that come to your mind? Anyone can go. This is not a Slido question. Music, very good. Sorry? Languages, excellent. Do you know the beauty of language? And language brings back another aspect. So there is a community in New Zealand. It's called Maori. And Maoris refer to the placenta as whenua. And the placenta as whenua, and also the motherland as whenua. Now, if you look at their worldview, they look at the placenta as not just something that connects to their mother, but also something that connects to their land. Now, that's a very, very good worldview, which possibly some languages don't have. As we speak, there are 7,000 languages, which are becoming 3,500 languages by the time our kids grow. And that's a loss of the way we look at the world, right? And that's how diversity is shrinking. Because those last 2 or 3 inhabitants of a small island who are the only ones who can speak that language are telling their kids, hey, learn English. You need to go in UK or US and find a job. And that's why we are becoming more and more British in our behavior. I'll give you an example of how diverse we are when it comes to medicines, right? We take homeopathy. Some of us take dadima ke nuske. Some of us believe in Unani. Some of us believe in allopathy. And if you look at malaria, the world's problem used to be malaria. The medicine that came from Peru, it was called quinine. And let me bring back the Britishers. So the Britishers took quinine and put that in tonic water. And then they distributed gin and tonic across the world. And then people started having gin and tonic and said, hey, I have malaria, because malaria developed resistance to quinine. And I'm blaming the British right now. That's supposed to be a joke. But honestly, malaria developed resistance, and the closest medicine that came, which could kill the malaria, came from China through a herbal medicine. If we are not diverse, and if we don't have ways of looking at the world in different way, possibly certain solutions may not emerge, right? I spoke to a friend of mine who I hired back when I was working with the Tatas. His name is Vishal Jain. He was hired from IIM Lucknow. And Vishal tells me that in India, if you can't see, there's only one watch which Titan makes and one model which has Braille script. Globally, there are few elevator companies now, luckily, but in Indian companies, we don't have many, which have buttons in the elevator with the Braille script. And when Vishal was hired and the lift or the elevator said 4th floor, he had a smile. Until that day, I never valued why that lift talks. And now today, my lift, the elevator I use every day is extremely talkative. Get aside, the doors are closing, thank you for coming, good morning. So we've gone to the extreme end. Vishal says that when I was hired, people didn't know how to work with me. So sometimes he entered meetings, people said, hey, sorry man, you can't see. And sometimes people said, hey, Vishal, why don't you have lunch with us? You're a superman. So he says that the way the world looks at differently abled is there are exaggerations. There's never a normal conversation. He says either either people pity with them or they try to treat them like gods so that they feel better. Actually, they want to be treated normally. And sometimes as HR leaders, we need to prepare the organization for that. So with that said, I think what's compelling yet for India incorporation is even today we are struggling with gender diversity. So my invitation to both the speakers is to straddle between both gender diversity and diversity when it comes to thought, diversity when it comes to having inclusive culture, ensuring that people feel safe in an organization, safe to give a point of view. Even if you're a minority in a subgroup, you feel that I can give a point of view. I have a share of voice in this organization. I think most of us, if we remember why we left an organization, chances are you'll remember you thought your share of voice in that team is going down. So this is where we are. So Meenakshi, Sonali, I think I'll request Meenakshi to go first.
I have been in Reliance for the last 7 years and been in this field for the last 16 years. in different organizations. And here I am to speak about diversity from my life experience and my journey in Reliance, and Reliance journey as well, right? Reliance started in 1966, and that time we are basically known as an oil and gas company, and we have been into oil rigs, and you will find that they are offshore, and it is about removing oil from the well and actually bringing it on shore and then processing it. It's a refining and marketing business. So these are jobs that are not most coveted by women. Let me speak about gender diversity to start with, right? And these are not something that women look at most as one of the jobs that they really seek for. And it was not unusual not to hire women. So the need for hiring women or need for having a gender diversity never occurred to us. So for very many years, we did not actually hire anybody who were women or diverse gender or any of that sort. And it was very usual because our competition didn't do it. And so it was normal. So later we realized that while I say this, I can tell you that we had all kinds of expats who came in, actually, who helped us set this. So we were diverse in that sense, but we were not diverse in the common sense that we say that when we talk about gender diversity, it's about women, right? We just start talking about that. Then in the mid-2000s, and we were basically in an oil and gas sector, we were completely B2B business, which means our customers were B, the people who were buying from us were men, we were selling to men, our stakeholders were men, so there was absolutely no need. Then we moved into retail. In 2000, we moved into retail. Mid-2000s, that's the time when we moved from a B2B model to a B2C model, where our customer cohort completely changed, right? If we didn't have diversity at that point in time, we would have actually lost 50% of our customer base, which were women. Or I can say that which were diverse by nature, right? So what we did was, we started thinking differently. Now, what we did was that we started looking at industry segments and people. Suppose I want to actually if I want to build a product, for instance, any product I want to build, I need a mirror image in my organization, right? So I need to have that kind of people giving me inputs at start stage so that my product actually comes out as I envisaged. So in 2000, suppose for my example, I have moved a couple of houses in Bombay. I've been born and brought up here, so I have moved about 3 or 4 houses. The moment I enter the kitchen, right, either the fan is on or the gas is on. So obviously it is that, this fan has been designed by a man, right? We have not thought over the fact that how is it that we can have both the functionalities working simultaneously. So it is important that we look at products at the start stage. And in 2000, mid-2000, we went into retail, and I have been very fortunate to be a part of that journey. And in fact, I can tell about myself is that when I joined Reliance in 2006, at that point in time, I really was not sure whether I was joining an organized sector, right? And I was not sure whether that was the right move for myself. But the journey I had with Reliance in 1 year that I was with them in retail was phenomenal, right? We learned from farm to fork. We learned how to navigate this ambiguous industry, diverse culture that we have in the country, ethnicity, color, race. Talk about it, and we had to navigate everything. And I must say that we've hired all types of people in retail, right from expats, right from people from all parts of this country. So we have been quite diverse in that nature. I can very comfortably say. So we navigated from this masculine organization of manufacturing oil and gas to something that was, thinking about customers, thinking about what will the customer actually think, optics, basically. So if you see in a retail store, you will see that optics makes a lot of difference, right? We coming from an inheritance from an organization which never thought about all this. So we really had to think as to which product needs to be displayed, where, whether it's jewelry, whether it's apparel, whether it's consumer durable, talk about it, name it, and we are there. So retail was a journey in itself, I can tell you, for Reliance. And then we diversified. I think last 7, 8 years, we've diversified into quite a few areas. We've moved into the most recent geo. Now we move from a B2B to B2C, now to C2C, right? In a C2C kind of an environment, we really don't have predictability. The predictability is that, what is the pool of people that we are actually looking at? We are looking at people from the age group of 5 to the age group of 85, belonging to any class, any creed, any section. So we have to build a product, a world-class product, which would probably cater to this diverse age group of people, right? Which technically means that I have to build my product. I have to get best minds to work against this. And my firm belief is, and I continue to believe this, is that meritocratic environment and equanimity, these are two things that we really need in an organization. We, as women, do not want to be treated separately, right? We do not want to be treated special, but we need a platform to actually perform. That's all we are asking for. And so I must tell you a little bit about the geo. When geo came into play, we really did not know as to, who are the best minds that will work. So if you see the geo organization, we've hired people from all sectors. Now, you can talk about Google, you can talk about Apple, you can talk about technology, you can talk about any industry. We have all kinds of people that we've hired there. This was the cohort that was going to actually build that product, which is going to penetrate across the country. So, for instance, suppose I want to watch, in Tamil Nadu, people watch Tamil movies. But if you see the north of India, if you see the northeast, you will find that people watch Korean movies. So if I have to do a geo cinema, then obviously I need to have that mirroring into my product. So to build this, we ensured that we went all out and ensured that we actually build this product, keeping in mind our customers, which is C2C, right? So I will refer Reliance as a super tanker. So the supertanker actually took up a journey way back 50 years ago in a particular direction, right? While the supertanker has changed some of its direction towards diversity, and we have a long way to go. We do have a long way to go in terms of us having an inclusive approach and all of that. I can tell you a few examples in terms of where we have actually included diversity in our organization. For example, if you go to retail stores, some of our stores in Bombay, you will find that people who do not speak are there, but they're performing brilliantly. So we have given that platform to them to actually perform, right? So certain differently abled people actually require to be given those platforms, right? Otherwise, I don't think they will be having that kind of, that kind of opportunities. If you go to see, I would also like to say in one of our domains where we have hired an ex-army guy who is differently abled, who lost his leg in armed forces, and he is in one of our leadership positions. And I can tell you that he is as capable or even better than a lot of people that we have. So I think my firm belief is that a couple of things that I really believe is that there has to be a business need. Anything that has a business agenda and makes business sense is here to sustain. If you have anything that is built just for an agenda that you need to be diverse and have an optics that say that, okay, you have women, you have expats, you have millennials, you have all kinds of people, it's really not going to actually sustain long. So if there is a business need, which we actually saw in retail and we saw in geo, we have actually moved in that direction, and it makes a lot of sense for us. The very fact that this masculine organization is represented by a lady in People Matters as an HR professional, I would say is a step for us in great progress. Because I don't think that, so when I look at my ecosystem, I find, for me, now that I've been there for about 7 years, I don't feel it different to be handling men. So most of the meetings that I go for, I have my leaders as men. But if I see the geo and the retail world, I see a lot of women in leadership positions. And that gives me great pride to say that this company has actually moved in the direction that it thought it needs to move. So, but I would like to also summarize this by saying is that we moved in certain direction. Now we need to actually make ergonomics, and we really need to ensure that we sustain this momentum in the direction that we thought we should be moving. And I think we will get there somewhere in a few years to come. Yeah? Thank you.
All right. I'm going to make one change to start with. The stage is really tiny, so I commend Meenakshi for having managed that well. But is it okay if I come down a bit? I don't have any slides. Okay. Always nicer to be closer to the audience. All right. My name is Sonali. I look after human resources for a company called Procter & Gamble. We're a consumer goods company. How many of you here are consumers of anything that we make? Not too bad, could be better. Okay, but we'll make sure how to convert you soon, okay? Now, as a consumer goods company, we are essentially, our heart and soul is in the field, which is sales, and in manufacturing, which is the plant, right? Because products get made and you have to sell them. So when we talk about diversity, and I'll share a few stories and some insights that I've had over the kind of 9-year journey that I've been looking after HR for P&G, which might hopefully hit home for some of you. So in about 2012 or 13, my supply chain head comes to me and said, okay, we've got investment to build this wonderful state-of-the-art plant in Hyderabad. And we've got lots of money for it, and I want to be like best in class in everything, so call it automation, the way we design our lines, be it in cost, and of course from a talent standpoint. And he said, okay, let's think. One of the things is I want to have a very diverse organization. And he's someone who's worked in different parts of P&G, so he's obviously seen this come to life. So we sat down, made this wonderful plan, and said, okay, we're going to have at least a certain percentage of women, and we'll figure out how to take it from there. And my talent acquisition team, off they went to say, okay, where do we find these people and how do we bring them on board? About a month later, as I was reviewing with them, they said, Sonali, we are getting a lot of people to come in. We're putting them through the tests, and they seem to be clearing. But somehow the plant folks are, giving us reasons as to why they don't really fit. I see a lot of nods. Makes sense, right? So she says, I don't know what the problem is, and they are saying, so maybe this is not working, and we should not try and look at this. So I said, okay, let's go down to Hyderabad, spend a couple of hours with them, and see what happens. And I went there, and my plant manager kind of stepped back and say, how do we partner together in this journey, open up their minds, and then you'll see that the shared ownership comes, and it moves beyond just an initiative, okay? So that was one. The second one was around, and it was interesting to hear, I think Raj in his last session talk about the ecosystem. And I agree with you, that the ecosystem today in our country, no matter what we say, it is not where we want it to be. Okay, so we can fool ourselves thinking we've made all this progress and all, but we are probably one of the worst few, if you look at it globally in terms of not only bringing in diversity, but actually grooming and making truly diverse organizations. However, having said that, Rome wasn't built in a day. I do think that when you are part of an organization, there is a smaller ecosystem that you can and you should and you have a responsibility to impact. So going back to the plant example, so as we were kind of hiring, and we actually hired a lot of women through different, some came from traditional engineering backgrounds, some came from diplomas, who had never actually worked in a shop floor, but had studied engineering, showed all the aptitude, right, and the mindset to be able to learn. One of the things we found is one day my plant manager got a call from a lady, and she spoke in Telugu because it's in Hyderabad, but I'll translate in English. So she said, my daughter's going to come work here, but no one has ever worked in my family, ladies, so can we come in, my husband and I can come and take a look at your site. So he didn't quite know what to do, but he said, okay, come. So he said, okay, come the next day. So they land up, and it's not only the two of them, they brought with them about 11 family members. Okay, from like the grandparents to, I think, the siblings, because they said, this has never happened. And if our daughter is going to come and work here, and this young girl is about 21 years old, we want to see where she's going. Now imagine, in a typical MNC, you're like, okay, what do we do with it? But this is normal, okay? So that actually gave us an idea that when you are trying to do something different in an ecosystem that is not used to it, what role do you play? So we said, okay, over the next 1 month, let's open up the plant. And we had not yet opened to for production, but we said, let's open it up and let people bring their families, come in and bring it and all of that. What that did was, I think it instilled a sense of that this is becoming the norm in the ecosystem. It helped actually get far more women into our hiring process because word of mouth, etc. And we did need to hire from around Hyderabad, and other parts of Telangana. And last but not the least, we got some great inputs into what are some of the challenges that we think after we hired that they could face. And we built those into our people processes, into some of our infrastructure so that it wouldn't be an issue later on. So my second insight, and I think it's, I use this example, but I think it's relevant everywhere, is that don't try and, change the country in a day, but where you can make an impact, okay, in whichever the industry, the area that you work in, definitely do try and look at what parts of the community or the ecosystem can you actually change. Last but not the least, I will talk about end-to-end kind of talent management. Now, when we say talent acquisition, to me, it is only one part of the pie, right? But talent is end-to-end in terms of it's not enough just bringing different people in. And I think Unmesh very eloquently said that bringing 1 or 2 people, that's not diversity. That's tokenism, right? You need to meet a number, you need to do something, and that's great, but it's not going to change anything for you. So how do you actually make it a part of your talent management system in terms of bringing it in and making sure, one, that you bring in enough people so that they don't feel that they are just, the exception, but it starts feeling like it's the rule, right? So we are actually embarking on our journey on kind of making our organization more representative, more diverse in terms of people with disabilities as well. I'll confess it's very early stages in India, but we've learned a lot from markets like the UK and all, who've done some wonderful partnerships with organizations like the National Autistic Organization. We are exploring tie-ups with the National Association for the Blind. And just a fun fact, how many people do you think globally there are who are classified, as per statistics, as having some sort of a disability? Any guesses? Any number, globally? 5, 10%, yeah. It's about 1.2 billion people, okay? That's a strange statistic, right? Because when you say differently abled, it means anything, not only from things which are very visible and which is very obvious, but things which are not so visible, but can have an impact on a workplace. It covers things like mental health issues. It covers things like hearing issues, okay? And these things kind of develop over time, and most of us don't even look at them as some sort of differently enabled. But again, in consumer goods company, when you have people working in plants, in the field, you have to know, okay, that these are things which might exist, right? So how do you make your systems able to pick that up early and provide the ecosystem within the organization, the policies and practices which can help those people succeed as well and provide a fair level playing ground. So I think just to summarize a few stories, but I think the first is leadership is key, not only at the senior level of the company, but those who actually run the business. So how do you play a partnership role with them? Secondly, impact the ecosystem that is within your control, because that's how you kind of pay it forward. And last but not the least, think of talent and diversity, not just from an acquisition, but how do you actually give everyone a fair playing field once they come in.
Can I request you to stay there?
Sure.
Yeah. I'm going to request Meenakshi also to come down because
yeah,
I think
it just feels more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah?
And I was hoping she's
and
comfortable.
And we can spot the people who are going off to sleep.
Exactly. So, my struggle has been that sometimes you get the leadership right, you get everything right, and then you have one employee who walks into a cubicle after a maternity break, and something as small as a colleague saying, hey, vacation ho gaya, can be a very bad derailer. And this is a new employee who says, I looked at a great brand, I walked into this office, and is this what this place really is? How do you kind of hold the culture together? How do you ensure that certain organization behaviors are practiced seamlessly?
Okay. So one is a bit more longer term, which is essentially you have to start actually through your training and awareness building, sensitizing people to this. For some of you, an excellent resource, if you go, there's a company called Catalyst, which does a lot of work on diversity. They have an outstanding series which is called Flip the Switch. And what it does, it takes typical, these exactly small kind of what I call micro inequities. They're not really inequities. You don't quite know, should I react, should I feel bad or not, but they happen all the time. And they say, how do you kind of, change the conversation? And we've used a lot of the material from them to build awareness throughout the ranks. That's one. So do go look at it. I think it's free for all and available. The second is actually in the moment. So when you are in a situation, you as an HR, and you know that, it could have an impact, or it's not something that is saying, you need to call that out. Okay, you need to call that out. So there'll be a few times that people will say, "Arey yaar, kya, it's not a big deal. This happens." You got to still go through and call that out, because then multiple hits of then people will say, okay, there's a reason, because I may not have meant anything, but there's a certain impact, right? And inclusion is kind of in the eyes of the beholder. Do they feel included or not? So some long-term stuff that you can do around awareness building, and then in the moment, call it out when you really are serious about building that culture.
Thank you. So the next question, very quickly, is directed at both of you, any of you. So each of us comes from an organization where we take pride that, hey, the most important practice when it comes to my organization is we have a second careers program. At Piramal, where I come from, 19 nationalities, maybe 100 countries, 32 global offices. We are truly diverse, right? We've acquired 40 organizations. I just met a few ex-colleagues. We are coming out with a plan where we're thinking at the moment that coaching and mentoring are not a straitjacket vanilla approach. So sometimes I may be a lady who's coming back to work and going through a postpartum, for those of you who know what I mean. Sometimes I could be in my 40s and have just lost parents. So sometimes mentoring in itself is a life stage mentoring process. You're promoted, you're a first-time manager, you don't know how to handle a team. Are there any cutting-edge best practices, or maybe if you were to pick up one, which one would you talk about?
So I can share this with you, you all. We have a program that we started last year, 16 months ago. It's called Aradhya. I've been fortunate to be a part of that program. It's a women leadership program. It's not progression. It is progression in its own word, in terms of the person progresses. If suppose we were a group of about 30 women who were taken at leadership roles, who are to be groomed to the next level, not necessarily in terms of designation, but in terms of profile. There were people from manufacturing, there were people from geo, retail, hydrocarbon, school, hospital. If you know, Reliance is into everything. We have scientists to, I think the only thing we don't have is astronauts right now. Huh? I think we have all kinds of professional sportsmen and all of that. So we had an iterating process in which we actually took these 30 women. We went through a 16-month program, which was very structured. We had interventions taken by DDI, SHRM, all of them, actually to groom us into what we are not so good at, and actually project us in what we are good at. Right. And it's a very structured program, and we were felicitated, actually, and we have, and the good part about this program, which I should share with you all, is that we had mentors who were men. Okay. Right? So there was a very inclusive approach from an organizational perspective, 30 women having 30 men. Actually, so there was a buy-in, and the first one has taken off really well. We have our learnings from the first one. We have imbibed that in our second one, and we will take that forward.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sonali, if you were to pick up one.
Yeah, we have a very active sponsors program, and a sponsor is different than a mentor. And I think too often we stay with mentors as someone, they're there with you to help during life stages, etc., which has a role to play. A sponsor's role is actually to advocate for you. Okay, so to help you realize your goals, career or otherwise, and these need to be people in the organization of influence, can be men or women,
Yes.
doesn't need to be one. And we realized that for our, our top talent women, very early on, we had to assign those sponsors, because sometimes the mentoring relationship helped to manage the current issue, but
Yeah.
it didn't always translate into the progression or the growth that we would want. So that's what we've
Oh,
institutionalized.
thank you so much.
Yeah?
Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm not big believer in the Slido process. So I'm going to, use the next 5 minutes and
You've
open
already
up.
waved the zero at us.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to overshoot the time as well, because the next speaker is going to also do that. So he's already confessed to me, and we're going to love it, by the way. So I'll keep this very quick. If there are any rapid fire questions or thoughts that are coming in your mind, just shoot, because we'd prefer that. We wanted a lot more of this.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. That's okay. I'll pick up the question. Sorry,
So I
I'll just
will,
repeat the question.
yes.
Do we have gender diversity at P&G on the frontline sales? And what has been the journey like?
Yeah, it's taken us about, I would say, almost 5 or 6 years. But today in sales, we are, and this is all field sales. Okay, so all my sales jobs are in Guntur and Akola and other places, and not so much in Bombay. So we have about 30%. Couple of things, happy to talk offline. I think first of all, we saw that we were losing a lot of people who were self-selecting themselves out simply because they thought they could not do a sales job. So there were a lot of misconceptions. So when we go, and this was true for supply chain as well. So when we are hiring, a couple of things we did. One is make sure that we tried to give them a virtual tour of what our plants look like, what a day in the life of sales look like, answer questions by getting some women that we had early on who were in sales to at least get people to apply. So that was the first step. So I think, fixing that leakage. Basic infrastructure issues. So we had to, I think, look at, do we have the right support in terms of infrastructure, the kind of offices. So many of our people are based with distributors. We don't have our own offices, right? But even in those distributors, we said we as a company will invest. And frankly, this was not only for women, it's for everyone. Like, who doesn't want to be in a reasonably nice working atmosphere? For all our salespeople, we invested in making a nice corner in the distributor office to at least, basic things like toilet facilities and things like that. Very basic, but reasons that people actually do leave. And then last but not the least, I think making sure that looking at our jobs also, how we structure them, right? Because yes, as we work with very capable distributor partners. So some of our jobs also, we've kind of consolidated them to make sure that maybe based in a slightly bigger city or a hub, which helps to provide more opportunities for growth. So these are just top of mind some, but happy to talk.
Okay, last question. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so that was again, and thanks for asking the question. So, I also learned a lot by trial and error. So the first few years I came in and I did all the things, the networks and women only. And I have to say, they served a purpose, but it just became like perceived as a special interest group, right? So we looked at, yes, let's have the networks, but now all our events, we open it up to everyone. Yes. Yes, over time. Some participation we mandate, so those who are managers of others, okay? We mandate participation in our conferences, networks, because it's important for you to be there to know the people working for you. And some we leave it open, and we kind of get more and more people coming in. But it really helped to make the conversation much more mainstream and therefore get traction for it.
Thank you so much to the speakers.
Thank you.
Extremely useful insights, and I'm sure that all of us had some brilliant takeaways. We are available, so anybody has any questions, please take it offline. We originally wanted to spend a lot more time answering questions, because that way we get to know you as well and get to know the audience.
So I think there's one question.
Okay.
Did you finally hire a woman in the oil rig?
Okay.
Yes. Yes. That's the answer. Who it is, I will share it with you when you come and meet me outside, right?
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, guys. Yeah.